Hello, I'm Luca De Giglio, and this is the Web3 in Travel podcast, where you can learn about crypto, blockchain, and how the new internet will change travel. Hello, and welcome to episode number 61 of Web3 in Travel. The sponsor of this episode is... no one. No one has yet purchased the sponsorship NFT. If you've listened to the previous episode, you will know that I launched a podcast NFT system in which you can sponsor the episode and be mentioned or donate and get an NFT. So it's on podcast.web3intravel.com. Check it out. You may be the first sponsor in history. So this episode is particularly interesting because it's an interview, and interviews are always a bit more energetic than me talking in front of a screen and a microphone alone. At least there's somebody else on the other side. And this is with Cynthia Huang from DTravel. She's head of growth. And as I discovered, she's actually one of the founders. I mean, she was there since the beginning. She is very knowledgeable. I had a glimpse on this when I looked at what she did online, especially a recent conference at Focusrite. But I didn't actually know that she was that knowledgeable and that she had been into the space for so long. And the result was a very interesting interview. Well, it's not even an interview. It was like more a chat and trying to, well, first of all, understand what DTravel is doing, how they're doing it, etc. So that part is actually an interview, and the rest was basically discussing, where is travel going, or how is travel going to adopt or react to Web3. Very high quality stuff, I would say. So enjoy it. Hi everyone. Today we have Cynthia Huang from DTravel in the podcast. We're gonna have a nice little chat, and we're gonna learn about DTravel, what they're doing now, how they started, and where they plan to go. Welcome, Cynthia, to the podcast.
Thanks, Luca. I'm really excited to be here and to chat with you today.
Great. So I'll let you basically tell us a little bit about you and DTravel.
Sure. Sounds good. So I've been a vacation rental host for a really long time myself. I started as a host on Airbnb in 2014, started renting an extra room in my house. And I remember my friends thinking it was really, really strange at the time. Still remember my first guest, and it was a really lovely experience. And because it was so new, this concept of hosting and home sharing, I wanted to find other hosts out there and figure out what hosting actually meant and how to be a good host. And as I looked up resources, basically everything I could find at the time was news articles saying, this guest trashed my place, all these issues. And I was like, maybe I want to rethink this hosting. But I decided to actually solve my own problem and started a host community. And it's grown to be one of the largest in the world, and it's called Air Host Forum. And it's really a place for hosts to come together, meet each other, share ideas, share resources, and just talk about issues that have come up. And still running today, we have a passionate community. And so the hosting and short-term rental space has been something that I've been a part of and have been a community builder in for almost a decade now. And then my journey into Web3 was actually kind of similar. So in 2017, well, actually in 2016, my husband was really into Ethereum. And so I started learning a lot about blockchain, and it seemed really interesting. And then when Ethereum came out with their smart contracts, we were really interested in it. And B token came out at the time. Not sure if you remember B token, Luca. That was...
I do. I had an interview with, can't remember the guy's name, but I followed BToken. I was almost going to actually buy the ICO in the scam part, because we got an email in the evening once that we could finally, we were in the whitelist, and that was the scam part, and I didn't because something was off. So yeah, I know BToken very well.
Cool. Yeah. So we actually did invest because it seemed like obviously it made a lot of sense, blockchain with the vacation rental space.
It was a perfect It looked perfect. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, there were definitely questions I think about their white paper because they weren't charging any transaction fees and everything was on mainnet, so it was going to be quite expensive at the time. But I think conceptually, anybody who was in the vacation rental space and knew a bit about blockchain could understand right away the benefits and power of using blockchain in this space. And unfortunately, they come realize, but then with all the things that were happening in crypto at the time, we ended up deciding to start a startup that was aimed at helping people learn about cryptocurrency. So we created a trading simulation game because that was primarily how people were getting into crypto at the time was through trading. And a lot of people were losing money. So we wanted to make it fun and easy for people to onboard into that. We ended up growing to over 350,000 users, all organic, and then ran into some issues with Google Play. So unfortunately had to shut that down. But that was really, I guess, my journey into being red pilled and going down the rabbit hole of really loving crypto and blockchain.
I missed the part in which you had to shut it down. Why?
Google, so yeah,
Oh,
I think people probably forget how anti crypto, I mean, it still is to some respects, but much more so in 2017 to sort of 2020. And we had some issues with Google Play where they decided to shut down our app. It's pretty common. We had
okay.
some other friends who the same thing happened to. So unfortunately, we had to shut it down. But that was such a good experience. And then with DTravel, a group of us came together, started writing the white paper, and then started working on it and launched the first version, or I guess more of like a waiting list in 2021, and then launched V1 in late 2021, and now have launched sort of our second version, which is a direct booking product. And so we call it like the Shopify for vacation rental owners. The idea is that we want to give vacation rental and short term rental owners a really easy way to get started with direct bookings because that's where we see the movement of not only the vacation rental and travel space going, but obviously Web3 as well, because that ownership and control piece is so key to the ethos of Web3. So, really bringing together all of those pieces in our first product, but then continue to build out this ecosystem of vacation rental and travel products over the next, however many years.
So I remember following closely the launch of the V1, which was more, if I remember correctly, like basically a marketplace, kind of Airbnb alternative. And version two, as far as I understand, is more like tools for your own direct booking website, or basically a way to launch a direct booking website. So I'd like to basically ask you, maybe you can tell me, and this is because I had this perspective. What is the difference? What are the differences between version one and version two?
Yeah, great question. And appreciate you doing your homework on this. So, when we launched with V1, our hypothesis was very much around, we wanted to solve the problems that exist in the vacation rental space by adding elements of decentralization and being a DAO as well. So, a lot of the problems inherent in vacation rentals are around fee structures and then arbitrations or dispute resolution. So, we thought, well, if we brought that into the community, it would feel more fair. And then one of the common complaints also with platforms today is that hosts don't feel like they get to be a part of the decision making, even though they're the ones who are most affected by it. And so that was where the DAO piece came in. However, what we quickly realized is that as we thought about how to decentralize operations and how to build this marketplace version of DTravel, we were going to run into a lot of the same problems that exist in the vacation rental space today. So, it's taken platforms a really long time to build to where they are today because there's a lot of regulatory issues and operational challenges that come with running a marketplace. And I think when you continue to build the same structure of a marketplace, you're going to run into those same problems, whether you're decentralized or not. And when we had that realization, we went back to the drawing board and thought about the problems we actually needed to solve for hosts. And they're around control and ownership. Ownership, not just in terms of in their business, but also in the ecosystems that they really help to add so much value to. And then also um, payments, basically, because depending on what country you're in, obviously payments can be really tricky. And then when there's an intermediary, and what we're seeing right now actually, or what hosts are saying is that they're getting delayed payments. So I've
Is
heard
this
from
something
people.
happening recently?
Yeah.
All
So I,
right,
I just saw a
from
thread.
Airbnb or general?
I think it's primarily Airbnb from what hosts
And
and the community are
what is
saying.
the reason you think? Because I haven't heard about that. So,
No, obviously they don't really say.
yeah.
So what hosts are hearing is that it's a technical issue. And what is happening is that they're getting delayed payments from anywhere from 10 days to, someone was saying that it took them 66 days to get a payment.
Okay.
And this was one of the issues that when we were doing our research and talking to hosts, had identified was that, even if it only takes you 3 to 7 days, as an example, which is pretty standard, you have to, you have all of these resources up front that you have to pay for. So you have your property, you probably have staff if you're a large property manager, you have all your expenses that go into maintenance, etc. And if you have a booking that's, let's say a year out, you're not realizing any of the revenue from that, but you have to put up all the upfront costs. And so, what happened during COVID was that, all of these hosts basically lost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue from all the canceled bookings. And they didn't have a control over the decision of that being made. And, it was a very difficult decision. So I think there probably would have been uh, complications regardless of what happened. But just looking at the host side, I think that was kind of a watershed moment for a lot of hosts where they realized that, actually, I'm really dependent on a platform for my business. And this is not a good place to be in because now I'm in this position where it's outside my control. I didn't do anything wrong. And yet I'm in danger of losing a lot of money and potentially even losing my business. And I think that has been one of the key driving forces of this book direct movement, where hosts are realizing that they need to move away from intermediaries. And it's perfect because, obviously we're a Web3 start, or we're using Web3 technology in what we're building. And that movement works really well with Book Direct because we feel like the ethos of them are both really aligned around ownership and control.
I remember very well when Airbnb basically said, no, we're not going to send you the money. We're going to send the money back to the guests. And I remember very well how hosts and property managers took that. That was a big shock. Now it was a shock in the midst of many other shocks. So it was like a whole feeling of the world is going bust. But thinking about that, yeah, it was a watershed moment. It was like people realized, okay, because I've been through the whole Airbnb evolution, and the beginning Airbnb was like the perfect thing, which
Hmm. Hmm.
has only positives and nothing can go wrong. And then at that point, we realized things can go wrong to the level that you don't get the money which you work for. Now, I want to ask you, what would have happened in 2020 if those bookings were not done on Airbnb, but they were done through a system like DTravel or on a smart contract, whatever? What is the advantage in a situation like this of a decentralized or anyway or a different system?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think that if we're looking at the host side, obviously what would have happened is they would have continued probably being able to run their business because it was up to them to figure out. So, we don't know what hosts would have done. I think probably what would have happened is some hosts would have refunded, especially if guests had, a very valid reason saying, I can't afford this and can you please give me a refund? Because it, makes a big difference to me financially. I think some hosts probably would have refunded. Other hosts would have worked out a deal with this guest where when they could travel again, they would honor that reservation. So I think the key takeaway is not about what the outcome would have been. It's more about the fact that hosts had control because ultimately, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are taking on the risk of running a business. And yet, there are decisions are being made that don't impact them. And again, it's not about making any one platform the bad guy. Like COVID obviously was unprecedented. Nobody wanted what happened. in either case, I think there would have been somebody who felt like there was a wrong decision being made. But if we're just looking at the host, I think the key sticking point was that they didn't feel like they were consulted. And I think, if we look at that from a DAO model, if let's say there was a vote that was put up to all of the hosts, and the host decided to agree, yes, we should absolutely refund the money to guests because we can't honor this, and we feel like it's the right decision because people are financially impacted. I think that would have been very different because now people feel brought into the decision making. But I think it was a fact that hosts, and not just on that decision, but on decisions that keep coming down the pipeline, they feel like they're not being part of that decision, and it does impact them. Like now, for example, on Airbnb with hosts, they actually can't, if they cancel, they're going to get fined up to $1,000, which I understand the reasoning behind it because they want to make sure that guests have the best experience and they're not getting canceled on last minute. And unfortunately, there are hosts out there who, if they feel like they can make more money, sometimes will do that. I think that's probably few and far between. And so it feels like we're overcorrecting harshly and punishing hosts for very valid reasons that they might have for canceling sometimes. So I think it's these decisions that, if you look at how decisions are made in Web3, Web2 versus Web3, it's about everybody feeling that they're part of that decision. And I think that's why Web3 is gaining so much traction because people want this sense of being part of a community and being part of that decision making rather than being told, especially when it's something that affects them strongly. And I think this is across the board on any platform where, you have creators or people on the supply side who are being affected by these decisions, but then aren't being part of that.
The another aspect which smart contracts could have brought onto the table in that situation was the transparency. Like basically, the smart contract would have sent the money to the guest, to the host anyway, because that was a hard promise. If the smart contract is programmed to send the money to the host, the money goes to the host. But then it stays on the blockchain forever. So anybody could have done analysis on how every single host behaved, and then hosts who refunded the money by saying, okay, look, I give you the money back, and then or I can keep the money for you as credit. That an analysis could have been done on that, and hosts could have got some extra points of credibility. That would have been completely programmable. Like, okay, some platform, some decentralized platform could have said and explicitated the host who gave most money back, or the host who gave a free stay the next time, etc. So I think we just started scratching the surface of what we can do once the data is open and anybody can actually deal with it. While what happened with Airbnb was like, we don't know. Even if Airbnb said, you decide, each host decides, right? There was no transparency on who did what. Only Airbnb would have had that transparency. So I agree with your point that maybe a DAO could have voted, or every single host could have simply decided what to do, but that would have been transparent, and that's an extra, some value which the market could price, and the market could basically use in the future for future booking. So I could have decided to give all the money back, and I probably, in that environment, I would have got more bookings later on because I was a kind of a good host in a way. Okay, so payments, and so you were saying payments and control. Could you go back to the difference between the two versions, please?
For sure, yeah. And I just want to comment on your point. I think that is absolutely true, and I really love that call out because I think when we're thinking about approaching reputation management and credentials in a Web3 world, it's, how do we build incentives or structures that incentivize or encourage people to be good actors and to have good behavior. And I absolutely love that you made that call out around, if things are transparent, then that promotes that good behavior that we actually want. And then in the future, people that can see that, guests that can see, oh, this host is very accommodating, they're really honest, and so I do want to book with them. It's almost a self-selecting mechanism at that point where people want to be good so that eventually it's actually going to lead to better outcomes for their business. So I think when we're thinking about reviews and reputation, that's definitely the way that we're approaching, which is how can we encourage people to want to do good and to be good hosts, be a good guest, and then get rewarded for it. So yeah, I think that's super spot on.
Yeah, you said,
And
sorry, to stay on this subject, actually, you said
yeah,
the word I forgot to say, basically the reputation. So you transform this behavior, this refunding or giving a voucher for the future in reputation. So you don't lose anything. Actually, you're earning something. And I remember when I used to have a booking platform, which was very basic before Airbnb, and people would pay 30% or 15% to book, but that was not refundable. But then I was saying the hosts, if you give money back to people who cancel, I'm going to add a point for you and I'm going to show on your profile that you refunded the money. So, and that would be part of the search algorithm. And,
hmm.
but, that was kind of manual and non-transparent. With blockchains, we can really make this, somebody could read this data and do a platform with only hosts who actually refund the money during the COVID. That would be an example. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I love this transparency piece because you can think about this being applied so many places across the board. So again, on the topic of being a good guest or a good host, we've been talking about this a lot internally, which as a host myself, obviously I want people who are good guests, right? And right now the review process is super subjective. So I am reliant on and that's the best measure we have of whether or not someone's going to be a good host or a good guest. But I'm going to have to read a review and hope that a host was honest, hope that a host that did have a bad experience actually did write a review. And so it's this really subjective experience. But then what if I could see, like to your point, if somebody had a stay and was a guest and they didn't have a damage deposit claim against them, that's a very objective measure, right? It doesn't necessarily mean they're the perfect guest, but it means at least that you don't have to worry that they did any damages. And if they've been a guest for a year or more, or been a guest for many, many years, that now starts to mean something because they probably are a good guest because they've never had any damages. But trying to really make the measures of good or bad behavior much less subjective and more objective with ways to actually indicate, okay, is this person a good guest or a good host, and tying that to, again, that transparency on the blockchain so that anybody can verify that. And it's not some black box where there's some kind of input, but we don't really know how everything works together.
Yeah, we can visualize like what's happening in DeFi already. There are these websites which basically analyze your address and then give you, what tokens you have, what you have in staking and stuff like this. In the travel industry, that could be your profile. Okay, how many times you booked, how many
Hmm.
times you canceled, how close to the date you canceled, how many times you broke something or somebody opened a claim. I mean, all these things. So this is incredibly precious data, which is now siloed in Booking.com, in Airbnb, in all these platforms. And that's where we get back control, because it's about that data which we produce, we as guests and we as hosts, now belongs to us, the producers. Or what's happening now, this data is captured by these platforms, and that's why they have all the power, and sometimes they abuse it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So if you're, I think this is unfortunate because you as a consumer, if you put in all this work of being a good guest on a specific platform, if you decide to move to a platform, now you lose all of that reputation. And I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, whether they come from hotels or vacation rentals, or even other types of trip bookings. Everybody wants somebody who's going to be a good customer, right? And if you've spent all this time building this reputation, you should be able to take that with you, like you said, and benefit from that history of good behavior. But again, because of Web 2, and it's nobody's fault, it's just how things were built. And that's why we're moving towards more of a Web 3 world. Then now we own that data and we can benefit from it and also choose who we want to share it to. And I think this really encourages people to want to engage in good behaviors because now they can benefit from it, right? And as more and more people engage in good behavior, I think that just lifts the tide where everybody now, almost as a default, has to be like that. because now people are going to want to, ideally select the people who have good behavior and then give them incentives or rewards or discounts. And other people seeing that will want that too. So I think my hope is very much that with this transparency, people will actually want to engage in good behavior because now they can see an actual tangible benefit from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So with this payments and then what else? Go ahead, please, with the comparison between the two versions.
Yeah, so payments, I know we've kind of had a thread on this. You, I think very early on, Luca, saw that smart contracts were something that were going to be a game changer in the payment space. And so with payments specifically, when we started with V1, we had crypto payments, but it was an in-app wallet. And obviously that meant that it was custodial. When we launched V2, what we decided to do was instead of using a third-party payment processor, which did accept cryptocurrency payments, we actually decided to build a smart contract booking engine that would automatically process payments. And then based on specific parameters, it would then send the money to the host once the cancellation period is over. So we're never an intermediary. The smart contract holds the funds in escrow until the cancellation date. And then once that cancellation date has passed, it goes automatically to the host. And so depending on what the host sets as their cancellation date, they're actually getting that money very quickly, much faster than other platforms, because as soon as the cancellation date is over, then they're getting those funds right away.
So they get the money before the arrival?
I mean, it depends on the cancellation date that they set. So, some hosts might say you could theoretically cancel a day before check-in, and then they would get the payout the day before check-in.
Okay. But this is in the context of more direct bookings, right? So
Yes.
if I'm booking through DTravel, it's like I'm booking directly with a vacation rental. So I trust already. And if I don't trust, I just don't book, right? So in that context, I think it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, this trust piece is actually very important. And going back to the transparency, one of the, I think, challenges that we have in the direct booking space is, and I've heard this over and over again from hosts, where if you don't have a relationship with that guest, then there has to be markers of trust. And when it's just a website and you're not sure if this person is legit and you don't want to give your credit card, then having the transparency where you can see that that money is going to an escrow account and you can see the conditions and verify it for yourself, that if I cancel, I'm going to actually get this money back. I think that adds a lot of trustlessness in the transaction, because it doesn't rely on the host saying, hey, trust me, trust me, trust me. It's now a smart contract that you can go to and look at it for yourself. I think, of course, the challenge is that most people aren't going to be able to necessarily read the smart contract. And so, how do we make it easier for someone to see that information, even if they don't have any knowledge of smart contracts?
Well, they see that somebody, well, if it's the first time, this is hard because who knows who the other guy is. But if it's like the 50th customer or the 100th customer, the 100 customers before you paid and the money went there and nothing happened. So it's more the track, which is transparent, than actually reading the smart contract itself, in my opinion. So the solution could be less technical. Is more about, okay, DTravel is getting bookings. That guest got 100 bookings. There's no complaints. There's nothing on the website which shows problems. I think I can trust the guy, right? It's a bit like reviews, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also making it a lot easier, though, for any consumer to be able to see a history of transactions. So to your point, if our smart contract has processed, thousands or hundreds of thousands of transactions, now you know that that smart contract can be trusted. But it's very difficult for most consumers who are not native Web3 users to be able to go to Etherscan or BSC scan or whatever kind of to be able to look at those transactions and see it for themselves. And so how can we make it easy as somebody who is trying to get more people into Web3 so that they can just look at it and then know automatically, okay, like all of these transactions were processed through the smart contract, so then therefore I can trust it.
Don't you show that you can just simply show the transactions on DTravel, or but wherever the guest is interacting with. It doesn't need to go on the block scan.
Yeah,
What are you
exactly.
doing
So
right now
then
with that?
right now we don't have a way to show it on an aggregate level, but that's one of the things what we're trying to work on is figure out how do we make it easy for, whether it's host or guest to be able to see transactions without having to go to a block explorer and then try and figure it out themselves.
I think it's pretty simple because now, what does the guest see? He sees he or she sees the booking website of the host, right? Or they go in
Yes.
DTravel.
No, yeah, we don't have
All right, so
well,
there's
guest
a
discovery.
widget or something. The booking engine is a widget.
It looks like a typical booking flow.
Booking,
So
okay.
then, yeah, so they
Well,
would put in
there
their
could
credit
be
card, confirm the
simply
details.
a link which maybe brings to DTravel with all the transactions this host has done, or maybe even inside the widget with a pop-up or something. I mean, you could easily show it, right, by reading the blockchain. And then close to each transaction, you have a link to the block scan as a proof that this data is actually in the blockchain.
Yeah, I think it's less about showing the transactions, but more about the experience of how do you build trust with somebody who maybe doesn't really understand what that is.
Okay.
How do you use language and the design pattern to make it approachable for them so they look at it and they're like, oh, okay, I get it, without having to explain all the nuance of what they're looking at.
All right, so let's see this from the point of view of a host. I'm a host. I have a website. I want more direct bookings. This is pretty standard. I don't want to make too much effort, or maybe yes, if I'm a property manager, I have somebody who can develop it. DTravel tells me use our, what you call it, booking engine. What would you call it?
It's a direct booking website builder, and then it has a booking engine
it's the
as
whole
well.
website. All right, so
Yes,
use our
yeah.
website, and which has integrated all the things you need, including crypto and smart contracts. And so they go to DTravel and they build their own website. So they can't use the previous website. They have to change website. Is that correct?
So the way that DTravel works is we integrate with property management systems, or PMSs as they're called, and then it's just a plug and play solution. So what happens is once they have their PMS, they just connect to their DTravel account, and then it will automatically spin up a really beautiful premium looking direct booking website with a booking engine that they can use to take both fiat and cryptocurrency payments. So there's literally nothing for them to do. All they have to do is press a button and they'll create this website. And we did that deliberately because, you kind of have two ends of the spectrum when it comes to direct bookings. You generally have something that is an easy to use website builder with PMSs. So it comes included in most PMSs today. But they're pretty basic, but it kind of does the job if you're just starting out with direct bookings. And then on the far right-hand side, you have more premium custom built solutions where you have somebody like Boostly creating really beautiful custom websites. Mark's done a really fantastic job of building his business and helping hosts with direct bookings. And I think both ends are needed, but where we really see a gap is in the middle, where somebody wants something a little bit nicer or more custom than something that a PMS would offer, because that's not their primary business. So that's totally understandable that it's not really robust for them. And then it's not so complex or so expensive that they need to go to spend, tens of thousands of dollars on a premium custom built solution. So we're serving the middle piece here, where somebody wants something that is more custom, that's modern, mobile first, and they want a booking engine experience that feels really good. Because that's the other thing that we're hear from hosts is the booking engine experience for a lot of websites or direct booking websites that they see, they're not very good. And so that's an area that we're really investing a lot of time and effort into as well, so that hosts can earn more through upsells and different things during that booking engine flow.
So basically, if I already have a website, I will get a second website. Is that so? Maybe I could
You
link
can
it from the
actually
first.
Exactly. Yeah. So if let's say you invested money into a premium website and you're like, I love my homepage, landing page, it's customized and everything that I want, but you're not really a big fan of your booking engine, you can keep your homepage and then add in DTravel's booking engine to the back end.
And you can integrate it with a link or with some widget which actually appears on my
Exactly.
website. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with the fact that the booking engines could be better. Even
Yeah.
I
Curious
mean,
why you think that.
because they are bad. I mean, well, why they are bad, we can discuss about that. But I even hotels, right? Even booking on hotel websites, they have budget, they have everything, and it's still much worse than booking through Booking.com or other systems. Of course, I mean the main business, the core business of a hotel is hospitality, and vacation rentals and property managers even worse. So we are so used now to make a very quick and easy booking that going on the OTAs, going somewhere else feels like it's a step back. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to fight that because sometimes it's better, but it's different, and different makes it look like worse. So
Mm. Yeah, I
it's
love
really
that.
hard thing to do, but at least make it as easy as possible. So I definitely agree that a lot of attention should be paid to the experience. Like people don't have time anymore to learn a new interface just to make a booking.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
booking
Yeah.
is one thing in a whole thing I'm organizing in my trip. I don't have time to learn, a new system. So that could be actually a very good move to make it easy and very good. What happens if I go through the travel and I book with a credit card? Do I still go through smart contracts in some way, or it becomes a normal booking engine in that case?
Right now, if you pay with fiat, it's going through Stripe, and we're continuously adding more integrations. One of the things we'd like to get to is putting fiat payments on chain. So again, you have that transparency and control. That one is obviously going to take a bit longer, but that is definitely the direction that we want to head in because we want to be able to bring everything on chain so that hosts have that complete control. Because even with a payment processor, again, this is kind of the reason why we decided to build smart contracts for the crypto payments is that you're still reliant on a third party. And if that
Of
payment
course.
processor pulls out of your country or for whatever reason they want to close your account, now you don't have a way to process those transactions. So we want to be able to put control fully in the hands of hosts by also putting fiat bookings on chain. And that one obviously is a lot more complex because now you have to do all these different transfers and have local banking partners. So that I think once the infrastructure and tooling also gets to a place over the next couple of years in Web3 to make that easy, then that'll probably be something that will be easier for us to do as well. But it is
How
something
would you
that we're
do that?
definitely looking at closely.
How would you put a fiat payment on chain?
We would probably have to have some kind of way to convert the fiat into
Okay.
crypto and then find a local partner to potentially convert that back into fiat if the host wants that.
Okay, but you can't get out of. I mean, yeah, I understand how you do that. You get $1,000, you exchange them for USDC or whatever. You put them on chain in the contract in the name of the guest, and then the contract owns the money now, and then the contract releases the money to the host, to their wallet, or to their bank account if you go back to fiat. The thing is, once Stripe got the money at the beginning, if whatever happens after that, if they decide that the money shouldn't be paid, the money is not paid, and so the money is lost. Now, of course, Stripe doesn't have this problem in general, but by putting it on chain, you make it transparent, but you don't really protect anyway because you're still in the hands of the merchant. I think, but still, at least it's transparent. It goes through the same system, right? So it has all these other properties we discussed before. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, I understand that we can't think systems like completely decentralized, only crypto payments, because this is not going to change for a long time. So we need to be creative there.
yeah. If we put fiat payments on chain, we would avoid using somebody like Stripe. Like we'd have to figure out a creative way. And so that's where the complexity comes in, which is how do you avoid sort of these intermediary payment processors and potentially use crypto,
Also, they
but it's
would
not
pay
apparent.
DTravel, maybe that's what you mean. They would pay directly you.
Probably not us. So
No,
we'd have to build
somebody.
basically plumbing. Yeah, exactly. You'd
Okay.
have like you'd almost have to have a common token. So not a cryptocurrency token per se, but like some kind of payment token that converts across multiple different
Yeah.
kinds of currencies, but doesn't necessarily rely on Stripe or somebody like that. So maybe a guest pays with their credit card. That credit card payment is converted to a cryptocurrency, and then we have to figure out how those
Yeah, you see, but
transactions then
you're
flow
skipping
through.
Stripe, and you're still having to deal with some other, Visa or maybe merchant. So the problem with fiat is once you get in fiat, that's the rules, and those rules are the ones we're trying to escape. At the same time, we can't escape them because people don't have wallets. So I don't expect anybody to come up with a very clean and easy solution for everyone. It's going to be different levels of, control, risk, easiness, etc. So, but yeah, we need to experiment. We need to think about find the sweet spot, and whoever finds the sweet spot is going to be successful, I suppose. But yeah, when you come from crypto and you go back to fiat, you feel like going back to the Middle Ages, and where things works differently. And why aren't they as easy as they are in crypto? And then regulation and KYC and all those, all the control those payment processors have, and they don't actually. It's not because they want to do that; it's because they have to kind of control the money in the name of the governments. It's a whole mess, and we can't. It seems we can't get out of this thing. But yeah, that's the world we live in. We have to find solutions for that. So I'm a host. I want more direct bookings. I have an easy solution in DTravel, which includes has all these properties we discussed. From the guest point of view, I'm looking to book something direct, and I find this website of the host, and I see that I can make a booking through this website, and I have fiat and crypto payment methods. What is, from the guest point of view, why is it better to have this kind of website or DTravel website rather than a traditional direct booking website? I'm not comparing to OTAs at all, but traditional direct booking versus DTravel direct booking from the guest point of view.
I'm really, really glad you asked this question. So this is actually picking up on something that you mentioned earlier, which is that sometimes when you go to when you talked about booking with a hotel directly versus booking through an OTA platform, sometimes the experience is different, and not that it's necessarily different bad, but it's different, and so people perceive that as bad. And I think that's where we are today in the vacation rental space, where a lot of solutions out there feel like they're from the Middle Ages, and they are actually bad different. And what we've really done is looked at the experience and design as being really critical to building that trust with a guest. Because one of the things that we know, I talked about this earlier, is that when a guest lands on a direct booking website, their primary blocker for completing that booking is a lack of trust. They don't know, is this person a legit host? Is my money going to be safe and I'm actually going to get the promise of this stay? And is this stay what it is saying that it's going to be? Meaning, when I show up, is the property going to be as advertised? And as you rightly pointed out, having really familiar design patterns for people instills that level of trust. And it's happening on an unconscious level, where when people see something that feels familiar, they're like, okay, I trust this because I've seen this before. And I think they're not even conscious of it, right? And our head of design actually comes from Airbnb. So, and he worked on the experiences team and also worked on the trust and safety team. So he's very, very familiar with all of these concepts, and he's extremely thoughtful in how to design trust into that experience. And so when you land on a booking website that is using DTravel on the back end, the experience feels really premium. It feels very familiar. It feels just like if you were booking through an OTA. Really, really easy experience. The checkout experience is really nice. And that's why we want to continue to invest very heavily in this experience, because that's really at the end of the day, what is going to be most important to hosts, right? Is that guest converting? And so there's a lot of ways that in the booking flow, it's going to lead to a higher conversion rate. So that's really where we want to add that value to hosts, because even if you have a really nice homepage and landing page, that's great. But if the guest doesn't want to go through and complete that booking, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And so what are the things that you can build into that experience to A, increase conversions, and B, increase the value of that booking, which are the two things that hosts most care about. So when we design our booking engine, those are the things that we're really looking at. And so we're doing things like adding upsells so that as a host, I was just talking to a host yesterday, and he was saying that he offers the service. It's actually really clever. So he works with the local Toyota, I guess the local Toyota store, and then he will actually rent cars and then pick them up. And he can add that now as an upsell on DTravel. So it's thinking about things like this that will help hosts make it easier for them with the things that they're already doing. So they don't have to go and get a third party service like a host store, because now they can just add it into the checkout flow.
Are these websites live already?
Yes. DTravel powered websites are live already.
Where do we get some links we can check? Is on the homepage maybe, or?
Yeah, so if you go to DTravel.com, you can sign up as a host to use it. Again, you do have to use a property management system. So we're integrated with Hostaway and
Yeah,
Uplisting
I
and
do have
RentalWise right now.
already an account, but other people's websites, so we can see, how they look and the rest.
So again, because we're not a marketplace, there's no place to go and discover.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there's, maybe if you want, I can send you some afterwards and then you can share them on the
Yeah, that would be interesting.
description
Yeah,
page. Cool. Yeah. One thing I do want to call out is that we don't have a guest discovery tool. So it's, again, not a marketplace, which I think a lot of people get confused by when they hear about DTravel, because they think it's something like, an OTA platform. We're not that. We're a booking solution. And what we are really excited about, though, is we have so many people asking us about, hey, where can I go and find DTravel powered listings? Because they really love our ethos and our mission and vision, and they want to support that. And so we announced this at the end of last year, but we have an integration with Travala that will be happening very soon. And so DTravel listings will be surfaced through there. So somebody can go on Travala.com and then search for a vacation rental, and then DTravel powered properties will show up there.
But
And
this
then
would be the Travala booking engine in that case. Their
no,
interface.
no,
Oh, your
they
interface.
will actually, yes, because again, for us, having our hosts have full control, have them own the booking is going to be critical to everything that we do. So all of the search volume that comes through Travala will get referred back to that host directly to complete that booking. So it won't be through Travala.
Oh, okay. So people find them on Travala and they click and they go on the host website. Yep. Oh, this is great. Because the biggest
because
problem
we didn't want to be we didn't want to be an OTA again, recreate the problem, because otherwise we would have kept our marketplace.
Yeah.
And for, there's obviously twofold benefits for the host and the guest. Guests now have a place to go and discover and support DTravel powered properties. And then it's nice where they can go and obviously find a place that they're looking for and be able to pay with crypto. And the Travala experience is really great. So we're really excited about that partnership. And then on the host side, one of the things that is really interesting is that we've come to this place that there's a lot of supply available. And what we're seeing is that there's almost, I don't want to say an oversupply, but there's definitely a saturation of supply. And what I've been hearing from my host community is that bookings have dropped significantly. And, that's probably also exacerbated by the economic downturn right now. But hosts are looking more and more to direct booking solutions to kind of make up that shortfall. And also, they want to move away from OTAs. But the reason why so many hosts use OTAs is because they help with the discovery piece, right? That's really the value that they bring. And one of the big challenges to direct bookings is that hosts continue to have a hard time figuring out ways to connect with travelers and to be able to drive their own demand. So with us, with that integration, we're really adding that as another value add for hosts so that it's a way for them to get discoverability, but then we don't have to come into the middle as an intermediary. And the really beautiful thing about this that's unique is that these travelers that are on Trivago.com today, they are a different group of people that are using OTAs. So these people, 80% of them pay in cryptocurrency, meaning that they're looking for solutions or accommodations that will actually accept cryptocurrency payments. And for hosts, they're getting access to a new segment of travelers that aren't using other platforms because they're looking for payment options in cryptocurrency. So we're not just competing with the existing pie, we're creating a new pie for hosts. And I think that is really such a strong value proposition because any new player that comes into the vacation rental space, they're just basically competing for the same group of travelers, right? And the same group of hosts. But what we're saying is we're going to open up this brand new segment of travelers so that, if you want to continue using OTAs, et cetera, like that's totally fine. And we support that because we want you to flourish in your business. But we want to also help expose you to this new group so that you're actually going to get more bookings than what you would without using DTravel.
I can confirm that I actually discovered this in Lisbon a year ago or something, a couple of years ago at an Ethereum conference. I met many people who said, well, I earn crypto and I want to spend crypto. Because again, once you have crypto, you don't want to go back to the legacy fiat system because it feels really old and complicated and unsafe, etc. It's funny to say that it feels unsafe. And so I met a few guys who said, well, I booked through Travala. And I was saying about
Nice.
Travala, because I tried Travala myself, comparing Travala booking and other like Locktrip and others. I rarely found Travala cheaper. So I never actually managed to, for the hotels I was looking for, I never managed to actually book through Travala. I booked only once through Locktrip because it was cheaper a little bit, but that's it. And so I was wondering, what is the business case? And the business case is actually there's people who want to spend crypto. And what I had missed until that point, that wasn't just enthusiasts who want to spend crypto because crypto is cool, which takes you that far. It's cool, but if it's complicated, you don't do it. Or if it's cool, well, you're going to keep crypto because they're going to go to the moon. But if you earn crypto and you don't want to go back to credit cards and bank accounts, especially, well, you want to book in crypto. And then you go to Travala, which is basically one of the very few options. So it is a different demographic. Those are people you will not get probably on Airbnb or
Exactly.
just marginally. Yeah. And the only way to tap to these people is basically through DTravel, I suppose. So, and it looks very, very interesting. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
With Travala, one thing I will say, because so it's funny, this is how small the crypto space is. With my last startup, I actually partnered with Travala and their team. And I think initially when they started out, they probably were a little bit maybe more expensive, but because they've just grown so rapidly and they're just killing it, they actually have a lowest price guarantee. So I think if you go on now, their prices are going to be comparable, the same actually as what you get on other websites. So I definitely encourage you to check them out again. And
I did it also pretty recently. Some hotels are cheaper, some are the same, so some are more expensive. And then I usually look for a hotel and then I compare the prices. And in my very limited data set, I wasn't able to book, but again, I'm sure there's many hotels which are cheaper. The thing is they source the inventory from many different places, including Booking.com, right? So I suppose the Booking.com is not really going to allow cheaper prices somewhere else because it would be a direct competition, right? But yeah, I mean, if you say that this is going down, I mean, the prices are going down, great. Actually, a question I wanted to ask you: how are you making money and how is Travala making money on these transactions?
Yeah, so with DTravel, any transactions that go through a DTravel powered booking engine, we charge 3%. Right now we're doing
2%?
3%.
3%.
Yeah, and we're giving that back in TRVL rewards. So essentially it's free right
Okay, the
now.
whole thing you get tokens for the
Yeah.
3%.
And then,
Okay.
yeah. And this is obviously a different model because what we found was that a lot of people who want a premium direct booking website, they don't necessarily either have the funds or want to invest a huge amount of money up front. So we kind of call this pay as you earn, where you don't pay any money on having this beautiful direct booking website if you're not making any money. And so we want to basically align our interests with hosts where if we're helping you drive bookings via the booking engine, meaning it's a great experience for the guests and they want to check out, then we're helping you do that, and that's where we make money too. So it's really about we don't make money until you do.
So you make the 3% in tokens or fiats, and you give your own tokens to them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and then with those tokens, are they locked or they can sell them on the market directly?
They're not locked. We are also going to be implementing additional ways for hosts and guests to be able to use the token. So right now they can pay with TRVL when they want to book, but then we're going to be adding other ways that we are going to that people can use the tokens. And one thing we didn't get to because just the vacation rental space is so fascinating, but DTravel is launching a travel passport, an NFT travel passport project, which we're super excited about. And then there's going to be a lot of ways to use TRVL within that ecosystem as well.
So basically, if the host doesn't spend the travel token, the travel token, the TRVL tokens,
Yes.
you made money until they spend them. But if they spend them or they sell them on that transaction, you didn't really make money. You made volume on your token, basically. Is that correct?
We don't really look at it like that. So the idea is that we're giving TRVL to hosts initially because we want to encourage them to use DTravel's direct booking engine. And we also want to deliver on our promise of community ownership. So that's why we're giving hosts the TRVL token initially. We give that back fully expecting that hosts own that. So we don't really see that as a profit if they don't use it. But what we want to do is design a lot of utility within our ecosystem so that there's a lot of ways for both hosts and guests to be able to use the TRVL token.
Is the
inside.
token inflationary? So can you create more? Can you mint more in the time, or they
No.
are fixed? Okay.
It's fixed, yeah.
Okay. And in that transaction, Travala makes some money?
Initially, they won't.
Okay. So it's more like I'm building the ecosystem / marketing / okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the smart contracts and the blockchain, etc.? So I would like to ask you, first of all, where are these smart contracts, on which blockchain are they?
Yeah, so all transactions for DTravel right now are on BNB chain. And the reason for that is that it has much lower transaction costs, and we expect that we're going to have a very high volume of transactions. So we wanted the transaction cost to be low for us and then for the hosting guests as well.
So the smart contracts, which keep the money after the booking and release it after, they are on the BNB chain.
Correct.
Is there a way to see those contracts from your website or from your knowledge base?
We have them linked on the trvl.com website.
Okay, so we'll check them. So only on BNB. Do you plan in the future to go on other chains as well? To go multi-chain? What do you think about the multi-chain thesis?
Yeah, I think for any project in Web3, that's definitely a consideration. As time goes on, there's definitely a lot more and more really, really interesting options out there. And so we are definitely keeping a close eye on that. I think what will also be important is consumer demand. So depending on where people want to see us next, that will also be a factor in whether or not we expand to a different chain.
Yeah, well, the big advantage of BNB is that it's connected to Binance. It's easy to get the BNB token and then to
Exactly.
operate on that chain. The other aspect is that it's very centralized. There's just a few nodes and they are all controlled. But that seems to be, for many people, not really a problem as long as it works. And so I've seen many projects who are on BNB, which actually are successful because the traffic is there. Um, so yeah, and it's always very hard to choose other blockchains. I ask you the question, but I know that the answer is really, really hard. Where are you going to go on a layer 2 on Ethereum? You can't go on Ethereum. Are you going to go on Polygon as everybody else? Multi-chain complicates the whole thing to exponentially, basically. So being on one chain is one thing, being on two is 10 times more complicated, being on three is 20 times more complicated. So it's really complicated. So BNB, great.
Yeah, I think in the next probably 3 to 5 years, there's going to be a lot of developer tooling that will make this really easy to not just deploy on multiple chains at launch, but also manage multiple chains. Because right now, as a developer or builder, you kind of have to manage everything yourself. But I do see a future very soon because it's just so necessary. And multi-chain is just a reality. It's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And I think the tooling is a big part of that. So when we have tooling where you have some kind of nice interface and you can go in and just manage all of your chains in one interface, I think that's when we'll make it a reality for this multi-chain experience. Because you want to be able to have users use whatever they want on any kind of chain without having to bridge across. Not only because bridging is annoying, even though it's super easy now, but there's also a risk with bridging, right? And so if there's a really easy way for a developer to be able to manage all of those chains, then it's just going to be the best user experience for everybody involved. Because then whatever people have, they can now use it in that transaction instead of having to bridge across to something else.
Yeah, the issue here is mostly that bridges are inherently dangerous. We haven't found yet a way to make bridges really safe. And so if we don't solve the bridging problem, we may have a limited multi-chain future. By multi-chain, I mean that you can jump from one to the other easily. There's going to be different chains, of course, but maybe some chains are going to an app would be mostly on one chain and not on many chains if this goes wrong. And while if this works, an app can be on many chains. We don't know. These are infrastructural developments we have to wait for before making any big decision. So I think it
Yeah, I
makes
mean,
sense to be.
if you think about the analogy of phones, for example, so you have a lot of different phones, and Android as an operating system runs on many different kinds of phones. If you're downloading an app in the Google Play Store, regardless of what phone you have, that's going to work the same. And so I think you can think about Web3 infrastructure or blockchain infrastructure in the same way, where we need to get to a place where regardless of what chain you're on, it's just going to work seamlessly for that app because it works across many chains. And I think that's the tooling, like, the picks and shovels that we need to build out before we can get to a place where that experience is seamless for our user, because we shouldn't put the onus of the burden on the user to figure out, okay, well, I need to go and use this token on this chain. It should be like, I have, XYZ token, and it doesn't matter what that token is. I can just use it. That's really the place that we need to get to for full adoption, because right now it's okay. Us nerds and geeks that want to use crypto, we can do things like bridging, and it's just a fact of life. But when we think about the innovation adoption curve, like those mainstream users or the laggers are not going to be wanting to use something like this, right? So we have to think about designing for the majority sooner rather than later.
Yeah, this is the optimist forecast in which different Android versions work on different phones. The pessimist one is that one is an iPhone, one is an Android, and they communicate in a way, but they're completely different systems. So I guess we just have to wait and see what happens. Definitely, it's really difficult to, or probably is wrong to try to predict these things and make a bet. And at the stage we are here now, I mean, being on a chain or two or three won't make a difference in travel. Like if you are in DeFi, the decision will be very important because you go after liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
In travel, there's gonna be the liquidity issue too, because if you're in a chain where most people who use travel, Web3 travel, and they don't have money there, they're not gonna bridge. It's gonna be hard. You have to go where they are. So probably it's gonna be a question of going, as you were saying, where the people are. Even if you don't like the chain, but they are there, you're gonna go there. It's no option, right? You cannot be ideological about that. More, but there's a lot of work in this in moving liquidity without bridges. Like, I don't know if you know Torchain. Torchain
Mhm.
found a way to basically move Bitcoin to Ethereum to Polygon without bridging it, so that once you did the transaction, you are completely on the other side and you don't have any more risk left from the previous chain. So since this is a very important problem, we're going to find a solution. I mean, crypto goes so fast. Another question I wanted to ask you is in terms of wallets, because I came to the conclusion that the biggest problem we have in general in crypto is wallets. If we don't fix wallets, it's gonna stay a niche thing, right?
Mhm.
What do you think about this, and how do you see this moving on? How are we gonna solve the wallet problem? And if you agree that there is a wallet problem?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's interesting because I think that it's about that adoption curve, right? So right now we have the early adopters, kind of like the geeks and nerds that we kind of love the technicality of it. And in a way, it's almost like an in club where it's like, oh, those normies over there that don't know how to use the
Yeah.
wallet. It's like, oh, who cares about them? But the reality is, for crypto to be successful, we absolutely have to make it easy. And I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a both and. We should have a world where people like us who want full custody have that option. They always, always have that option. But realistically, most people don't have the skills, nor do they even want to or even care
Mm.
about the benefits of having self custody. And so when we think about designing walls, like I think Argent is definitely doing a good job here. Like, how can we design wallets in a way where you keep the security of it, but it's an experience that feels more Web 2? So can we design security in a way that is not just about memorizing some crazy seed phrase that you're never going to memorize and maybe you need to have it tattooed on your arm, but it's a way of, are there behaviors like social graphs basically for me to go and recover my wallet? So I think that's probably more the direction that we need to head in. I think the other piece of the adoption too is that, again, for us on the left hand side, where we're fully bought into Web3 and crypto, we're okay with using really terrible experiences right now. But for the majority of people, especially using something like a consumer app in travel, they're going to just completely fall off when they have to come to even trying to understand, oh, I have to download this thing that like I have to memorize all of these codes. Like, I'm not going to do that. And so for us at DTravel, I think what we want to lean into is, as much as I think people hate the term Web 2.5, that's really where we're operating, is how do we both offer this non-custodial option for hosts and people who want to maintain that level of security and control, but then also make it so easy for anybody who wants to use DTravel because they align with our ethos to be able to come in and continue to use that. And so we're looking at, different wallet options so that anybody can use it and realize the benefits. And we hope that as they progress in their journey, they're going to want to continue down that path and learn more and more about Web3, and then also kind of like get red pilled as well and fully self custody. But I don't think we should force that on users, right? Because it's ultimately up to them. And for us to have mainstream adoption, we have to be inclusive for everybody so that they start on their journey and we make it super easy. Because I think one of the other challenges we have is so many products in Web3 are so niche. And so people never really get the benefit of learning about Web3 and experiencing the benefits of Web3. And I think that's why NFTs have been so powerful, because the barrier to entry has been so low and it's very consumer facing, where somebody can get a wallet and then collect this really cool thing. And I think Nike, Starbucks, Adidas, they're all doing fantastic jobs of really making that easy for anybody to come in. But what's really interesting is that they're Web2 brands that have really brought in the masses, or at least like masses to some extent. And we don't really see a lot of Web3 companies doing that. I think Polygon is enabling that on the back end as being the blockchain to do that. But we don't really see a lot of Web3 companies who are bringing in a lot of Web2 people. And I think that's where we really see our position, is to bring in a lot of people who are interested in travel because it's such a universal interest, but then making the experience so easy for them that they feel like it's seamless and that it's not a Web3 product, but they're then kind of get red pilled into the Web3 benefits.
Yeah, it's a bit like imagine that you are in Airbnb and you are 10 years in it, and then one day you want to get out, and you can export everything. You can export every booking, the listings, the reviews, and everything. So if you have an exit, it's not bad that you are in a custodial environment. It's like when I have my Bitcoin in Binance, and then I decide to take them out because Binance is gonna die tomorrow. I take them out, and then I see that it didn't die, and I go back in. That level of control is already a huge step ahead compared to what we have today in OTAs. Now, do we want to go even farther? We never go back in Airbnb. We never have a custodial system. We never put our money in Binance. Well, that's where it gets, just for a few people. And yeah, definitely, if you can have self custody, you can go 100% self custody. But I think that even the fact that my assets, what I build in my travel business, or as a guest, the reviews, the reputation I built, can be custodial, can be in somebody's hands, and I trust those people because I trust the brand. But I can take them out. This is the exit option, which I don't have in OTAs, and that's enough for me to be considered such a big step ahead, to be called a revolution. Basically, that's enough already. So if you can get there through, let's say, Web 2.5, it's already very great. We don't need to be ideological about that. So I fully agree with what you said here.
Yeah, I love that. It's really about the choice at the end of the day, right? Like I think
Yeah.
with Web3, really the ethos is about ownership, but ownership in meaning you get to make the choice. In Web2, we don't have a choice, right? We're the product. These big conglomerates own our data. They can choose what they want to do with the data. They have say over the policies and what we do on those platforms. Web3 is about having the choice. It doesn't mean that you'll make a different choice necessarily, but you have the choice to make it. And maybe that's what gets a little bit lost in the ideology, like you said, where we're so kind of far to the left that we want to have all the control and we never want to go back to having custodial solutions. But the reality is like that's not realistic. And I don't think it's what most people want either.
It's like you are in the United States, so you are in a country which has laws and obligations, problems, opportunities, etc. It's not perfect, right? But wherever it goes, you can leave. You have the exit, right? So you're fine to be there, and I'm fine to be where I am because we can leave. We already are in a 2.5 situation. Now, the Web 2 is North Korea. You can't leave. Or if you leave, you have to, if you leave Airbnb, you have to get out in underwear. They don't give you anything. You've been there,
You
you
have to
have a
flee.
5,000, you have to flee, and they don't give you anything. Your 5,000 reviews are dead the moment you cross the border. You can't take them over to booking.com or your own direct website. So that's North Korea. And what we've been thinking for the first year of crypto is like, down with the government. Let's build our freedom land. Everybody decides everything, very hippie style. And we know very well that doesn't work. Or it works at a certain scale, only with a certain kind of people, right? So we have to build systems which are, for most people, working. And I think the most important thing is the exit. Yes, it's centralized, is custodial. It's so much better than North Korea anyway, right? So that's kind of my position right now. I am the guy who wants to go in the commune with total freedom, with no government, but this is me. And I can't impose this, and I cannot expect everybody to come there, because if everybody comes there with their mentality, that becomes again a normal country, because people want rules, they want to be controlled, etc., and they want to be protected, basically. So yeah, I've been through 3 winters. This is my third winter, like crypto winter, and I think I found now the kind of the sweet spot in where, if we want to build something for the masses, how it has to be built. I left my ideology behind, or at least my ideology is for me only, or for a few other people. And but most people won't get there. It's the missionary part is over. I'm not going to try to convert people to Bitcoin anymore. I mean, I stopped this long time ago, or people to do the full decentralization anymore. They don't want it. They want something easy. They want something which works, and they want something better. So I think the approach you're having is on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that analogy of North Korea versus the US. That's really funny. One interesting thing that I've seen, and you've gone through three, I've gone through two bear markets now, but with every sort of cycle, the ideology kind of shifts, right? So in 2008, when the Bitcoin white paper first came out, it was very almost like anarchist. And now we've kind of gone, like even from the last cycle to this one, 2017, 2018 was very much about trading and payments and kind of the fintech space of it. And it was about the technology. So it was very focused on blockchain as an enabler and full decentralization, and talking about the ethos and the ideology behind, like, we want everything to be fully decentralized. We want full control over everything. I'm like, screw the traditional finance sector and screw governments. And what's really been interesting is this cycle, we've not only gone through a rebrand, so calling crypto and blockchain Web3, which encompasses this movement, but a very, very different shift in ideology. So the people who are coming into Web3, as we call it today, are people who are mission and vision driven about a more equal world where they can come and contribute and be owners. And there was a little bit of that, I think, prior to, but that is almost like the theme song that Web3 has become, which is a bit of a different shift than everything that has come before. So the next cycle, I think that again is going to shift a little bit, where what we focus on and what people coming into the space will want is going to look slightly different. And I think for us in the space that are building, it's really important for us to identify what those shifts are and to move along with it. Because if you kept, let's say if DTravel kept the same kind of ethos that we believed in 2017, 2018, now we'd be like, no custodial wallets, only ever MetaMask. And you have to interact directly with the blockchain, and there's no sort of interface for you to do that. And that's just not realistic, right? So as culture and society and markets evolve, we as builders have to evolve with that and understand what the consensus is that people want, and meet people where they're at as well, because otherwise we just aren't going to be able to be successful.
Yeah, well, we are at the level, like, DTravel is not building infrastructure in terms of like wallets, for instance. So you have to work with the wallets which are out there. The wallets today are limited, dangerous. It's easy to lose your keys, etc. So you can't build something very decentralized. Maybe tomorrow we have account abstraction or social wallets, where more people can use wallets and keep control of their private keys in a safe environment. That enlarges the decentralized offering you can give, but not because you made it, because the infrastructure got better. But either you wait for this to happen, and it's maybe another 5 years, or you start working on what we have today. And I completely agree with your take. I mean, if you want to build something today, that's a reality. That's what we have to build. We don't like to give custodial services. We have to give them anyway. There's no way out, unless you want to build just for the few nerds who. But then you don't have enough. You don't have enough people to make it worthwhile, right? So
Yeah.
I guess
actually, I was talking to the ZK Sync team yesterday, and
Right.
they have account abstraction. So I'm going to dive into that. Really excited about that because it could potentially be a game changer. So it's not as far away as we think. Like, as we know, 1 year in crypto is like 10 years anywhere else. So it will probably actually happen within the next cycle, I think, where when we have this conversation in a couple of years, Luca, it'll be like, oh, wow, look at how far we've come. And now we
Yeah.
have like social recovery that's really easy, and all these things that we just imagined in 2023.
Yeah, you know what happened like with AI in the last month, right? It's like
Mhm.
finally after I don't know how many decades it came in our computers and we start playing with text and images, and it feels like finally the tsunami hit the beach, right? And crypto is not there yet, but the moment it happens is gonna be like we were not ready for that. We got so much used to wait and wait and wait, and it's slow and it's not happening, and then boom, it happens. And maybe ZK Sync or any other similar technology with ZK Scan. No, what you call them? You talk with ZK Scan
Sick.
Sync. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
the
They're
zero
an
knowledge proof
L2.
the zero knowledge proof technology solves the problem of wallets, and then a year from now we can forget every custodial system or the custodial systems become niche, and most of what happens on the travel is decentralized, is self-custodial but safe. So we need to keep flexible, and we need to try not to get lose hope that things actually become and it becomes possible to have them decentralized. And yeah, let's hope. Let's see what happens. Great. Do you want to add something? I think we discussed over an hour. It was very interesting. Do you want to add something to close?
Yeah. I mean, the time has just flown by, and I think we're both people that love talking about this stuff. So we could probably go on for 20 more hours. DTravel is available right now for any hosts and property managers that want a direct booking solution. And as I mentioned, we have a lot of exciting products that are coming down the pipeline, one of which is the NFT passport, which we're super excited to launch, announce, and share with everybody. And, I know that right now it's 2023, things might look a little bit crazy, but Luke and I have lived through a few of these, and it always looks different when you're in it. And then when you look out on the other side, having that certainty, I think one of the biggest gifts for me going through 2017, 2018 to 2020 was that I didn't have as much certainty as I did then as I do now. And to me, it's an inevitability that crypto and Web3 is going to be successful. Like, we've come way too far down and there's too much money invested for this to fail. And I genuinely believe that the technology is game changing. And so for anybody listening, I think just have faith and certainty that we're going to get through this. And, honestly, just like put your head down and keep building, because the people that I was building with in 2018 have now gone on to build, multi-billion-dollar companies. So it really is overnight. You can go from being a pauper to being a prince and then back again. So yeah, just have faith.
Yeah, I do agree that the 2018 winter, the feeling of inevitability was not that strong. Yeah, I personally told that was going to continue. That's why I stayed in the market. But now you feel like this cannot go back. It's just too big,
Yes.
and it has proven. Because in 2018 we didn't have really apps you could use. It was all theoretical. Now we have seen apps. We've seen DeFi beating CeFi in security. We've seen a lot of things. So it is
And
going
big
to
brands
happen.
coming in, right? Like Nike,
Big
Starbucks,
brands. Yeah.
Reddit, Adidas. I mean, these are big brands investing heavily in Web3. And so whatever the next evolution of Web3 looks like I think it's undoubtable that some part of it is going to be part of the future. And so it's really important that everybody is in it now, because you're going to be part of, the next internet era, right? And that's
Yeah.
something so magical. Like, how many of us get to say that we were part of this movement, that in the future people are going to be like, whoa, that's so cool that you were so early in it.
And in the travel industry specifically, there's so little going on. Like there's
Yep.
few companies. There's not much actually activity. And being here now, knowing this time, knowing, not guessing or hoping, but knowing that this is what we say in Trips community. Web3 is going to eat travel, right? So
Yes.
knowing that Web3 is going to be everywhere in travel, for whoever uses the internet, and the opportunity is enormous. It's just about choosing what to do and moving fast. And this is when you build things, not when prices start going back again and it becomes noisy. So the feeling of the opportunity here is enormous. And I think people listening to you talking about DTravel now, after FTX imploded and everything seems, you ask your friends, they tell you, your friends ask you about crypto, say, "Oh, crypto died," and what are you doing now? I said the same. Why didn't it die? And listening to people like you, like not skipping a beat, like, yeah, something happened, but it doesn't really matter, and
Doesn't
we
matter.
keep
Yeah.
building. That gives I think this is very precious for many people. I think we can change lives by speaking like this, because some people listen to this and go like, okay, I can stay in this thing, it's not dead, and maybe I can, and then they study a little bit more and they actually understand why, right? So thank you very much, Cynthia. Thank you for presenting DTravel and the version 2. I look forward to see what the next months. So let's keep in touch.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Luca. This was super
All right.
fun.
Bye. And we're done. Thank you for listening to this episode. For more insights, follow me on Twitter at Tripluca, TRIPLUCA. If you enjoy my podcast and want to support it, head on to podcast.web3intravel.com. 3 is a digit, and mint an NFT. If you want to sponsor it, you can do it at the same page. I will mention you in the podcast, and your name will appear on all donation NFTs for a while. Thank you, and ciao.